benefit to using time value of money to make business decisions is that it provides us with a level of objectivity that we can stick to. Valuing projects isn't a science, but it does give us a certain amount of rigor in our thinking. We provide a certain amount of scrutiny to the numbers, and we allow others to scrutinize them as well, and this opens it up for a conversation among the business leaders so that we can make sure that the choices that we're making fit into our strategy appropriately. The fundamental question, if you remember rightly, was, what is this worth? And we've got several applications in the business world that we're going to be using this for. Operating expenditures. If you have an OPEX that you're going to be making in a company, the question is really, why are we expending this money? Why are we spending money on something that we may or may not get good use out of? It could be that we've got something large that we're going to purchase which is going to be depreciated over time. It could be we have a capital purchase of some sort we're going to make. So we might be using the time value of money to answer the fundamental question for capital budgeting purposes. I also have seen a lot of application of TVM in marketing campaigns. One of the interesting things about marketing is that it's not instantaneous. A marketing campaign takes time to come to fruition, and there's a lot of testing that goes on and a lot of assumptions. The marketing experts that I know use the testing and the assumptions that they can make in order to formulate a good campaign, which they will then retest. And they will adjust their assumptions, and they're always trying to see what is this campaign going to be worth over an appropriate period of time. And so they use TVM in that application also. We may be making time value of money computations in order to make a decision between different considerations that we have. For example, what if we have mutually exclusive projects as opposed to independent projects? An example of a mutually exclusive project would be, shall we build a parking garage on a plot of land, or shall we build a factory on a plot of land? If we only have one plot of land, we can only do one of these two alternatives. If we have many plots of land, we could treat those as independent projects and do many of them. A similar issue is the idea of capital rationing. Capital rationing is based on the idea that no company has an unlimited supply of money. And while they might have a long list of good projects that they could invest in, it's unlikely that they're going to be able to invest in them all. So we may use time value money in order to rank our projects and ration our capital appropriately. We may use them to consider the value of timing, or to consider projects which have different lifelines attached to them. We may use them as some sort of a formalization of an approval process, and we may use them simply as a comparison between different departments when we're trying to figure out what the budgeting should be across departments. In order to make some of these decisions, there are going to be some criteria that we're going to talk about. The key criteria we're going to talk about are NPV, which stands for net present value, IRR, which stands for internal rate of return, and PBP, which stands for payback period. To the best of my knowledge, I'm the only person in the world who abbreviates PBP in his slides, so I'm simply going to call that payback period from now on. But when you see that abbreviation, just recognize what it means. Finance textbooks are going to go into some other criteria which are out there in the world, but I don't see them used regularly by real companies. PI, which stands for Profitability Index, is kind of a one-stop measurement, similar to the coefficient of variation, which is going to tell us sort of what's the bang for our buck on a project. But if I use the three criteria above, the net present value, the internal rate of return, and the payback period, I get a complete picture of a project. And so I don't have to worry about one more metric that I'm going to use. There's something called the Modified Internal Rate of Return, the MIRR, which is out there, and you're welcome to read up on it on your own, but it tends to lose a certain amount of its integrity. What it's trying to do is to address the issue around the reinvestment risk of a series of projects and a series of cash flows, but honestly, I think that it introduces enough uncertainty into the computations that it's not as valuable as the three that we're using up above. There are others that you will undoubtedly stumble across in your career, and it's fine to use them, but I would encourage you to use some critical thinking before making a decision based on something other than the three criteria shown for key criteria.